It's now my pleasure to introduce the 2021 grantees who will talk about their exciting projects and how the endowment's grant has made a difference. Our first presenter is Ann Evans, who will be giving us an update on the Kenya Education Fund's $3,000 grant that was given in 2019, but has a 4-year timeframe. Ann?
So thanks everyone for all your generosity that has made this possible. The Kenya Education Fund is the name of the organization that I sit on the board of and was a co-founder of. And Kenya Education Fund is an organization woven together with 3 organizations and communities that had supported them, that supports promising young people in Kenya who don't have the means to go to high school. This is because high school is not free in Kenya. You actually have to pay. And most of the high schools, in fact, are boarding schools. So students leave their homes, go to boarding school full time, and throughout the year, they are pretty much in school with small 2-week breaks every now and then. So the 3 organizations that came together with the Nomadic Children's Educational Fund, which I founded with some friends, and Kathleen Browning, also from Immanuel previously, was one of the people who was a board member with me on that. The Kenya Education Fund, the 2 leaders from that organization currently actually are the leaders of KEF, the combined organization. And the Children of Kibera has a lot of ties to Immanuel also because it was founded by the late Ken Okoth, who was formerly a Potomac school teacher. And so we have lots of ties into Immanuel with the KEF. But our student whom we've been supporting is a wonderful girl named Sharon Michoki Omanwa. And she is now in the beginning of her senior year. After all the compressed and very strange timeframes that have been necessary because of the COVID problems, she's now able to be looking forward to graduation in December of this year. She will attend some special things that I will talk about a little bit. She's going to attend a second life skills workshop that KEF will give for the students who are at this point in their education. And she will also, after she graduates, because there's a delay in the Kenyan system, they don't have room for students going directly into college. She will spend a year, most likely if she gets into college, she will spend a year waiting for that. So we give them career workshops and opportunities to give back during that year that they are awaiting their next moves. So she will attend a career workshop in February after graduating in December. And she sends a message to all of you. In her last letter, she said, "May you live long and continue helping many others like me. God bless you and thank you so much." So I wanted to just pass on those words from Sharon, who appreciates so much what we're doing. But let me turn quickly to exactly what happens to a student who is sponsored through the Kenya Education Fund organization. The sponsorship, which is very inexpensive. We basically, for just high school education, we raise $1,000, and that covers the entire high school education per year. And so you think about that, sending a child away to boarding school where they're fed and given education for $1,000 per year, it's quite remarkable when you think about what people spend on private school in our area. So they get school tuition, room and board, uniforms and shoes, textbooks, a scientific calculator, exam fees, and participation in these workshops that I'd like to tell you a little bit more about because they're so critical, I think, to the success that we've had. For some students, we do offer the opportunity for 1 year at university to help them get started. And often there are other grants that can then help them out with that, or they can get a job and work and go to school. So for gifted students, we charge like $1,250 a year when we have that anticipation of university as well. But 2 of the things that have made the most difference in helping the students succeed in school are really the life skills workshops. And you can see that's everything from HIV education to dealing with gender issues and leadership skills, personal hygiene, all the kinds of things that high school students really need to know. But if they don't have parents who went to high school ever, they may not get this education at home. And many of our students, because they're poor, they come from slums, or from very remote rural areas where education's not a norm. These life skills workshops are critical to them. Similarly, the career workshops that we offer are really, really important for them. And they get computer skills and literacy and financial matters, university application help, public speaking, all the kinds of things that can make for success in furthering their education. So one of the things that has been wonderful and rewarding for us is that KEF really excels in preparing its scholarship students for university and employment. And we see that the average in Kenya is that 31% of the students are able to qualify for a university education through a test that's given annually to all the high school seniors. And 91% of those who come through the KEF program are able to qualify. So we feel very, very gratified that this has happened. And so over the years, we've granted now over 3,000 scholarships. That means 3,000 families and young people affected. Their communities are affected by the fact that they are able to better represent them in all kinds of fields. We have at any one time roughly 500 to 600 active scholarships. We work with 90 partner schools. And as I said, 91% of these kids transition into additional higher education opportunities or work. And that is a fantastic thing that we're very proud of. So I'd like to just end with a bit of thank yous from some of the students. You'll see some of their faces and you'll see how they dress in uniforms and you'll see what your money has made possible. And I just want to thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. See if I can get that to play.
Thank you, Kenya Education Fund, because of giving me this opportunity to be in school.
Nashukuru kwa sababu wamehusika na ufanisi wangu kimasomo.
I would like to thank Almighty God for giving me the opportunity to be sponsored by Kenya Education Fund.
Thank you, Kenya Education Fund, for the books.
I'm happy for my sponsors. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to continue with my studies.
I thank you for the sponsorship they offered me. I would like to thank my sponsor for giving me this opportunity to be in school. I'd like to thank my sponsor for giving me the opportunity to be in school. I'd also like to tell them a word. Galatians 6:9 says, "Do not get weary of doing good, for in due season you shall reap harvest of your action." So I'd like to encourage you, continue doing good things to us, and with the due time, God shall reward you mightily.
So please, if you have an interest in this, further learning about it, kenyaeducationfund.org, or I'm happy to take any questions in the chat. Thanks so much.
The Synod of the Presbyterian Reformed Church in Cuba received a grant of $2,500 in 2021. Hunt Howell will talk about the purpose of the funding and the current situation as it relates to Cuba. Hunt?
Yes, thank you very much. The problem that was addressed by the grant was that in late 2020 and 2021, the Presbyterian churches in Cuba faced declining revenues due to COVID. I mean, people just weren't going to church, and rising personnel costs due to the government having mandated a minimum wage increase of over 500%. And I should say that most of the clergy, not to speak of the rest of the staff, are paid at the minimum wage in Cuba. So the purpose of the grant was to support the Presbyterian Reformed Church in Cuba to supplement the salaries and clergy of its members, of the Synod there. It was understood that the grant could not be dispersed directly to the Synod in Cuba due to the U.S. embargo restrictions dating back to 1960s. So the grant had to be channeled through the Cuba Partners Network, of which Immanuel is a member, by the way. And Cuba Partners Network is a network of Presbyterian churches that have an affinity for one or more churches in Cuba. And that entity was, under the Obama administration, was given permission to transfer monies to Cuba from the various members, and that was the channel we were to use. And in fact, so in April or May of last year, the Immanuel Church dispersed the funds to the CPN account, the Cuba Partners Network account, which is managed by the Shepherd Valley Presbyterian Church in Albuquerque, by the way. In July, CPN deposited the funds with its agent in the bank for transfer to Cuba. However, the bank stalled because the Cuba had been put back on the list of terrorist countries, state sponsors of terrorism. That was a little trick that the Trump administration did in the last week of its administration back in January of last year. And as a result, even though technically, legally, the funds could have been transferred, all the banks were scared of doing any kind of business with Cuba. And so our grant fell into that hole, unfortunately. So, as a result of that, we asked for, and the session gave, as it was mentioned previously, that the session has granted extensions of these deadlines for several of these grants, including this one, and for this reason in this case. But the prospects for 2022 are much better. The Cuba Partners Network announced a resumption of visits by Presbyterian groups to Cuba. So far, 8 trips have been scheduled, and some have taken place already. For example, the first partner of the partner network is Colorado Springs Presbyterian Church, and they are on a visit to Cuba in this month, March. The treasurer also confirms in February, he wrote a letter to me or emailed to me, and he confirmed that, in fact, every effort will be made to disperse the funds to the Synod account in Cuba during 2022. They're hoping that the wire transfer mechanism will become unstuck. And what has been done in the past, and which could well be done with some or part of these funds in this year, is that people frankly just take a cash with them, on their person when they go into Cuba, and then those greenbacks are deposited locally into the Synod account. And we may use that mechanism. Another encouraging feature is that the PCUSA has announced new mission agency liaisons for the Caribbean, and is including Cuba. And this is a married couple that are going to be who are going to be resident in the Dominican Republic, but who've already been to see the Presbyterian Church in Cuba. So there's good relations there. And another encouraging fact is that they marked this month, the State Department announced it's expanding the U.S. embassy personnel and returning them, which is to say, because they've been cut the staff way back, now they're returning to full complement of staff there. And they're especially emphasizing consular services, which will be helpful because that will enable people to go back and forth much more freely. But as far as the Synod is concerned, the need for the funds remains. I mean, the Synod is very active. They've had an annual meeting in Matanzas, which is where the seminary is located. It's one of the major provincial cities in Cuba. And that was held in the first week of February. The Ludmilla, which is the pastor of the First Havana Church, with which we have had 2 visits now to IPC. IPC went several years ago, then I went the year just before COVID got started. So she was very active, still is active. She was vice moderator, and now she's off that board, but I think still very active in the church. The COVID cases are declining, and so the activities are returning to normal. And New York Avenue Presbyterian, with which we've collaborated, and which we are hoping to collaborate closely in the future, they are planning a trip for the first week of March of 2023. So all in all, I think things are looking up for our relationships with the Synod in general, but First Presbyterian in particular. Their primary need when we applied for the grant was for these salary top-offs, given the circumstances that I mentioned. But they are very much looking forward to our continued involvement. And so thanks very much to the Endowment Committee for approving this grant, and we certainly plan to disperse it as soon as possible. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Hunt. We wish you so well in 2022 that the money gets to where it needs to be.
Thank you. Yes, I hope so.
Next, we will hear from Liz Valander on video and Steve Parker from the Harraseeket Foundation, which supports IPC's Pathways program for high school and college students. They received a grant of $1,500.
I'm Liz Valander, and I work with the Harraseeket Foundation. The Harraseeket Foundation supports Immanuel's IPC Pathways program, which encourages Immanuelites to help young people imagine their future. Thanks to the Immanuel Endowment Grant, Harraseeket will host an internship fair this fall for high school and college students. We'll invite students who are potential Pathways Internship Fund interns. The Pathways Internship Fund was created by the 2020 grant from the Immanuel Endowment. This fund provides financial support to economically disadvantaged high school students during unpaid internships. The fair will last 2 to 3 hours, and we're planning on having panels to talk about what internships offer, why internships are a good idea, how to find and apply for the right internships, getting the most out of internships, and how mentors can support the interns. We're thinking we'll invite employers to interview candidates during the fair as well. We're seeking additional partners to help organize, support, and promote the fair, including internship employers. Communities and Schools, which is partnering with us on the Internship Fund, has agreed to help us with the fair. One employer has already signed up. Thank you, Immanuel, for making all of this possible.
So I guess it's my turn. I hate following Liz, but I have to, since Marjorie asked me to repeat something I said to Marjorie the other day. First, this fair has grown into much more than what we envisioned when Liz Valander and Lindley Ogilvie and Elizabeth Lodel and I applied for this on behalf of the Harraseeket Foundation. Our partner Communities and Schools, as Liz just mentioned, Elizabeth Lodel introduced us to them, now wants to co-host and arrange for it to be available to all Wakefield High School students, and they're in Arlington County, as most of you probably know. We also have, as Liz just said, gotten real interest from corporate partners who will be internship employers. That's great. And then this is really cool. The Fairfax County Public School Workforce Coordinator heard about our internship fair, and they want to co-host with Harraseeket a second internship fair in a Fairfax County public high school, again, focused on economically disadvantaged and students. So we're now thinking if these fairs are successful, we might do this annually. So this grant has already had a multiplier effect. Harraseeket will spend much more than the grant, and the scope will exceed what we expected. And just to be clear, and I think this is the part that Marjorie really wanted me to emphasize, we wouldn't have done this fair if it weren't for the endowment grant. And that to me is the best of what the endowment fund is. It inspires germs of ideas. It allows them to flower into roses, and then rose bushes, and then entire rose gardens. And as I said to Marjorie the other day, the same thing happened with the other two Immanuel Endowment grants to Harraseeket. There's the 2020 endowment grant to Harraseeket, which Liz mentioned. It establishes the Pathways Internship Fund, which is the subject of the fair. And as Liz said, the fund gives stipends to at-risk, economically disadvantaged students to allow them to take unpaid internships. And since that grant, Harraseeket secured grants and commitments 5 times the original amount of the Immanuel grant. And that'll allow much more now that we're on our 3rd round of internships, and hopefully as COVID recedes. The interns so far have given the internships rave reviews. So has Communities and Schools, our partner. So we're thinking this thing might scale maybe in a big way. And without that grant, we'd have waited another few years to start the fund. I'm really glad we didn't, because we've been able to ramp it up during COVID, and I think it's ready to take off. Then finally, there's the Harraseeket grant in 2019, the first grant we got, to fund a high school vocation fair in the Immanuel Meeting House in February 2020. That was the last Pathways in-person forum before COVID shut the door. That fair became so much more than we envisioned when we applied for the grant. High school students, parents from 8 high schools, 23 panelists from Immanuel, mostly young adults, and from McLean Islamic Center, which, by the way, is another Pathways community. We spent 3 times that grant, and it was worth every penny. That fair really changed how we think about Pathways and how we think about community. And again, we wouldn't have done it without the endowment. So I'll leave you with this final thought. The Harraseeket Foundation, think of it as a vehicle to incubate ideas to support Pathways programs at Immanuel and in other faith and secular communities. And these 3 grants have had huge multiplier effects. I mean, financially, expanding the scope and nature of how Immanuel helps young people. And so we think of the endowment grants to Harraseeket as incubating an incubator. So thanks to the endowment committee, and thanks to Immanuel for helping Harraseeket change lives.
Thank you, Steve. Artstream, a theater program designed for children and adult performers with intellectual disabilities, received $2,500 from the endowment. A video, and Heller Ann Shapiro will tell us more.
Thank you so much. We're just so grateful to the Endowment Committee and your many generous donors. The funds supported our Alexandria theater companies, which last year were all online. You helped us pay for the captioning to make sure the videos were accessible to everybody. And we showed the videos at a drive-in theater in Alexandria. So it was the first time in over a year of pandemic that our families were able to get together safely outside and watch themselves on screen. And it was just an incredible unveiling, very exciting and so positive. And you'll see that what we found with the captioning was that, you know, some of our actors have some challenges making their words clear, but with captioning, everyone could be easily understood, and it has completely changed our ability to, as you'll see in the video, involve students who may not have the best speech, but really have a lot to say. The first thing you'll see on this video is a thank you message from one of our actors in the company. And then the 2 performances that were created on Zoom. The Haunting of Rosecliff Manor pops up first. It's where family portraits came alive when a new modern family moved in. So you'll see people in old-fashioned dress as well as modern dress. Just a quick snippet of a song. And then our next show was called One Small Step, and it featured a competition to see who would get to Mars. And you're coming in at the end after the winners have been announced. So some are ready to go to Mars and some are saying, oh, maybe next year. You can see both shows in their entirety on our website. You go to, I'll put it in the chat how to do that. And we have brand new shows coming March 25 at Synodic Theater. One was filmed virtually all year, and one has been rehearsing in person with masks. And both will be shown on stage starting March 25. And our last speaker is another one of our actors with just one more note of thanks. So let's go ahead and roll the video.
Hi, my name is Meg Casillas. I want to talk about why I love acting. Artstream gave acting to my life, so I love Artstream too. I began with vaccination stage and came to Artstream when it started 16 years ago. I am a personal member. I am happy about that. I love doing plays. I love having people in the audience and to make my fans happy and for them to have fun. When they see our play, it is always a special day for me to get my new script that we have been working on in class. I try very hard to know my lines when I can say my lines on stage. I feel very good about that.
Where do we go? What is not lost cannot be found. Traveling, why do we go? What will come next? To that lay down.
Who'd have guessed it would? What's the likelihood it would end this way? What a chance we took, we rewrote the book. Well, hey,
Some of us are march.
some of us are not, but possibilities abound. No need to be distraught, 'cause next year there's another trip. Let's give that a shot. So hey, we'll stay back and lend support. Meanwhile, we're the Morse cohort for outer space.
Lucas McCormick, and I am an Artstream actor. My favorite part of performing with Artstream is developing new characters, learning new songs, and working with my fellow actors in a new production. Artstream also has a lot of fun Zoom classes, and every week we have a super social Saturday. Thank you for your generosity gift that help makes Artstream possible.
Our next grantee is Joanne McTeague, whose Yellow Door Foundation received $4,011 from the endowment. Yellow Door provides free long-term lodging for families of immunocompromised pediatric patients who are being treated at the UVA Children's Hospital in Charlottesville, Virginia. Joanne.
I'm so glad to be here. This is the third time that I've been with you all because you've been so incredibly generous to supporting my Yellow Door Foundation. We're in Charlottesville, but we do have a connection to Immanuel. It was my family's church many years ago. And my dad, Mike Orand, was very involved in the I Have a Dream program and getting that off the ground and making it the success it was. So anyway, I just feel so thankful that you guys have stuck with me and supported my idea, which has truly grown leaps and bounds, much beyond what I ever thought. This year, with the $4,011, you guys helped us put together our 5th apartment. And by put together, I mean outfit it for immunocompromised kids, taking out carpet, putting in flooring, specialty paints on the walls, HEPA air filters, everything that's needed to provide the best sanctuary for these kids when they're trying to recover from cancer treatment or from a transplant. So the most medically challenged kids that really need to be in a place, gosh, especially during COVID, a place that is their own with their family around them, so they have the best chance of recovery. So we just started with an idea. We are getting our 6th apartment in a little bit. We just had a commitment for our 6th apartment. So since we welcomed our first family in February of 2018, we've been able to host 61 families. And in the apartment that we just did that you all helped with, we're hosting our 4th family since we got it up and running. We actually have a 14-year-old boy who is with us for the 3rd time, sadly. He's fighting cancer, and he and his mom and his grandparents have stayed in 4 of our 5 apartments. So they are just so grateful, and so many of the families from all over Virginia and West Virginia are so grateful to be able to have a sanctuary while they go through this very, very tough time. And I just can't say enough how I get emotional, how grateful I am that you guys have stuck with me through all this and been so generous with your donations. So we've had a great year. Our model, as I tell everybody, was way ahead of its time. It's proven its viability through COVID because we had to make no changes. We kind of had the model in place before COVID hit. So we've been able to continue on uninterrupted through this. And a lot of our counterparts have not been so lucky. So we've actually stepped in and helped this year with some families that we might not have been able to help in the past, but we did this year. And so it's been a joy, and we've had support from so many different places, and we just keep moving forward. And thank you guys again. And I would say the invitation is always open to come and see what we're doing in person. I tell people all the time, it's one thing to see it on paper and to hear about it, but to actually come and to meet our families and see our apartments and see what you've done to help, I would welcome that. And we're also having our 2nd annual golf tournament October 7th. So if anybody is interested in golfing, would like to roll down to Charlottesville and play some golf and help Yellow Door, that would be great too. And for those of you who don't get our updates monthly, you can register on our website, and that's yellowdoorfdn.org. And if you go there, you can see so many of the stories of our families and what we're all about, what we have coming up. And our first ever annual report is on there too, and it'll share a lot of the things with video and such that might be of interest to you. So anyway, I thank you all again so very much. And I'll be back to you probably in another year. Take care.
Thank you so much, Joanne. 5 Talents is an organization that empowers the global church to minister to communities living in extreme poverty. Hear now from Sarah Herndon how the grant of $2,500 helped their program coordinators in East Africa. Sarah.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Sarah Herndon, and it is so wonderful to be here with you all and share about the impacts that you all are having. So I just wanted to start with a quick question. I wonder if anybody has had that experience where they leave their house without bringing their cell phone with them, or if they've lost their cell phone at any time. If you're like me, you spend a lot of your day relying on this piece of technology. And so when we don't have it, when we leave our house without it, you feel very lost. In my case, oftentimes literally lost, given how much I use my GPS app on here. And I think we put the same weight on our computers. Many of you are probably on a laptop right now to attend this event. We use our computers for email, for research, for projects. Needless to say, when technology is not available or when it is not working properly, it can be very difficult, sometimes feel impossible to get anything done. Well, 5 Talents, as was shared in the intro, we work with the local church to minister in remote and vulnerable communities in the most fragile regions of the world. And many of our program partners who help implement these programs, they do much of their day-to-day activities without modern conveniences. But as you can imagine, that is not without difficulty. And so it is why we are so very grateful that the Endowment Committee granted us this money that enabled us to purchase 2 cell phones and 2 laptops for our program coordinators in Burundi. So Burundi is in Eastern Africa. Just a little context about that country: more than 70% of the country lives below the international poverty line. It is 5Talent's largest and most impactful program, and it continues to grow. It grew in the midst of COVID, which is incredible. And these cell phones and these laptops are helping with that continued expansion. So just to share a little bit about how that is happening. 2 big reasons: data collection and record keeping, which I know doesn't sound too exciting, but both of these are very critical parts of what our program partners do each day. So these phones and laptops are making both of these processes more efficient, more accurate, and more secure, which is extremely important. So before, field staff would frequently have to handwrite all of their reports, these reports that track information about specific savings groups, these groups of neighbors that people form together to learn how to read, learn how to write, count, make change, get basic business skills training to be able to start these small sustainable businesses to lift themselves and their families out of poverty. So beforehand, field staff would have to handwrite reports that kind of captured information about these savings groups. Handwrite, can you imagine? And oftentimes there's very sensitive data incorporated into these things, like names, addresses, where these savings groups meet. So the fact that all of this is now able to be kept on a secure laptop is really wonderful for our program partners. Regarding the cell phones, so baseline and impact surveys are another important part of what our program partners do. What that looks like: when a 5Talents trainer goes to one of these savings groups, they need to conduct a baseline survey, which really helps paint a picture about the men and women who are a part of those groups. So are they already literate? Do they know how to count? Do they already own a business? How many dependents do they have in their homes? And what they're able to do with this data is use that to kind of track over the course of these savings groups meeting together. They're able to track the progress of that savings group, both with that baseline survey and comparing it to an impact survey months down the road. And so now that they have these cell phones, they have access to an app. It's called ComCare, and that is where they are conducting these baseline surveys and keeping all of that information. So again, it's instead of pen and paper, it's very efficient and it's much more secure. So this donation, to wrap up, has just been extremely important in equipping our partners better to be able to do their day-to-day activities. And as I said, it has continued to help this program grow. So just since January, in fact, 180 new savings groups have formed, which involves more than 4,400 members, 75% of which are women. That's a really important statistic, especially in a country like Burundi, where gender disparity is such a big issue there. So we're so very grateful. It's a very exciting time for this program, and I just hope that you all know that you have had a huge part in that. So we are very grateful for the support that you have given us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Chesterbrook Residences, the mixed income assisted living community in Falls Church, received a $1,000 grant to support programs to enhance the lives of its residents. Kent Stansberry will tell us more about the project. Kent.
Chesterbrook has been sort of out of sight, out of mind for Immanuel, many of the Immanuel members. I just wanted to give you a chance to get up to date. About 20 years ago, Chesterbrook combined with the congregations of Lewinsville Presbyterian Church and Temple Road of Shalom to create Chesterbrook Residences Incorporated. That corporation created Chesterbrook Residence, an assisted living facility, mixed income assisted living facility in Falls Church. It has been one of these regular outreach programs of Immanuel for about 22 years now. It's been very entwined with Immanuel. As I recall, there have been 10 members of Immanuel have been on the board of directors. There have been somewhere more than those, 20 or 30 volunteers doing a variety of things for residents, resident life. And we have been the home for about a dozen or so, I have lost count, but about a dozen or so members of Immanuel or family members of Immanuel. And we have been the home for over 500 senior citizens since we opened up in 2007. The grant that Immanuel has given us was an attempt to provide some additional enhancement to the quality of life, where we are using it to buy planters, a planting table, and some additional planting equipment like gloves and tools and planting soil and so forth, to put in the building's inner courtyard for use by all of the citizens. Our plan was to put that out there in 2021, and it would be a benefit for everybody. Now, as things typically go, however, COVID had a different idea for senior citizen living facilities. Here is an excerpt from a letter that the administration sent. They sent regular letters like this about 14 months ago, reminding them that they've had an additional resident test positive. They have to go back to some restrictions that on living that they had been under for many months. And as we were trying to get the planters, they were being asked to stay in their apartments full time for many months. The only human contact many of the residents had was when a member of the staff would bring them their meal into their apartment. Now we fast forward to a couple of months ago, things are beginning to look up. A lot of the COVID restrictions are easing, some are lifting entirely, and so we have high hopes that the planting material that we got with the grant will be useful, mostly because, hey, spring is right around the corner. And so our hope is that very soon we'll be able to put those planters to use, and I will give back information to Immanuel and the Endowment Committee about how much they're enjoying them. Thank you, Immanuel. Thank you, the Endowment Committee, for supporting this activity. The residents of Chesterbrook look forward to using that at as quickly as possible in the future.
Kent, you're absolutely right. The timing is perfect for them to go out and plant and enjoy nature, and we wish you well. Langley Residential Support Services, a community nonprofit that has been providing residential and life-enhancing care for adults with developmental disabilities for more than 35 years, received $2,500 from the endowment. LRSS Executive Director Maureen Gum will describe what that money has meant to the organization. Maureen?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to Immanuel Presbyterian Church and the endowment donors for having this celebration event tonight, including Langley Residential Support Services among the stellar causes to receive a grant in 2021. I am Maureen Gum. I became the Executive Director in August of 2021, but I've been with the organization for about 14 years. So for anyone who does not know, this very community was actually part of establishing Langley Residential Support Services as a nonprofit in the early 1980s. So volunteers from Immanuel Presbyterian Church joined others from two other faith-based organizations, Trinity United Methodist Church and the Lutheran Church of the Redeemer in McLean. They were chaperoning dances held by the Ark of Northern Virginia. These faith volunteers became concerned what was going to happen with these young people after they graduated high school and they were moving on and their families were unable to care for them. Where would they live? What kind of quality of life would they have? So in 1985, the volunteers launched the first group home in McLean for residents to live as independently as possible while being supported in their day-to-day activities. While we've been able to expand our services since our founding, we've maintained the same commitment to our community. Our mission is to serve adults with developmental disabilities, their families, and our communities by providing quality, comprehensive, residential, and community support services that enables these individuals to live valued, productive lives. Currently today, we work with 21 people in 5 Langley residential group homes and 28 people in 22 households across Fairfax County. With the level of skills varying from person to person, our programs seek to help residents and program participants become more connected with their community and to build confidence in living as independently as possible. The programs are small and individualized, but we do focus on residential supports and our community drop-in support program. We're highly regarded throughout the community for our authentic family feel and putting our residents and program participants at the center of all decision making. We rely on their likes and dislikes, their wants, desires, and feelings, thoughts, and words to help determine what's best for each individual that we do serve. Immanuel Presbyterian Church phenomenal support in 2021 helps to keep these programs going and to improve the lives of 49 local neighbors with developmental disabilities. More directly, the funds that we received, they go into Langley's Emergency Economic Assistance Program, also known as LEAP. It's made possible for several people with limited resources to purchase items or receive medical treatments vital to their everyday life. We were able to help purchase a set of hearing aids. Someone was able to get eye surgery this past year, as well as someone was able to help out with their annual supply of an extremely expensive medicine that their health insurance does not cover, and they have to meet a very large deductible for another program to help pay for those medications throughout the course of the year. We were even able to help someone purchase some new clothes so they could attend church and feel special in some nice clothes. And so those are the things that we like to do, is to support those people and get the eye surgeries and the hearing aids and things like that they wouldn't be able to get. It would be a very tight stretch for them. The COVID pandemic has impacted financial stability of many of our residents and program participants. So being able to access these funds through the LEAP program was a way for them to help meet some of their essential needs. And we thank you for that. At this time, I want to make a special note to anyone who knew Betsy Schatz, Langley's former executive director for more than 32 years. Today marks the 1-year anniversary of her passing. We miss her immensely, but because of the tremendous support from partners like Immanuel Presbyterian Church, we carry on the legacy of ensuring everyone in our community has the opportunity to live rich, full lives. Thank you so much for your continued investment in the lives of local residents with developmental disabilities with Langley Residential Support Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen, very much. EduTutor was created to meet the urgent need to provide academic tutoring for the most at-risk public school students who were already behind when the pandemic began, and at the same time to address the growing teacher shortage. They received a grant of $2,500. Here's Elizabeth Lodel to tell us more.
Hello, Immanuel. I have missed seeing so many of you for so long. I hope we can have a reunion in the near future. In the meantime, I want to thank the Immanuel Endowment for the magnificent grant that they gave to this new undertaking called EduTutor VA. In August of 2020, 6 of us got together and created, we're all in our 70s, and we created our first business, a nonprofit business devoted to 2 things. 1, children who are falling behind even further during this pandemic. We tutor only in public Title I schools with children who are a year and a half to 2 years below grade level. And the second, and this is truly a win-win, is we employ and pay university and community college students who plan to be teachers, because we know that teachers have had a very difficult time. Many are leaving the profession, so we are trying simultaneously to meet student needs while growing this fabulous profession that most of our founders have devoted their lives to. The Immanuel grant provided us the money to have our first big tutoring workshop last year. And because we were all virtual, we were able to bring in an expert from California, several from universities, for a fabulous 2-day workshop for our tutors. So while they are getting courses at the university, we are supplementing their education. We have also hired our first executive director and education coordinator, who is a fabulous, dynamic young woman named Meredith Fortner, who is a professional teacher trainer and has catapulted us into a much higher level of training and of support. Moved from 3 schools last year. This, our second year, we have 7. We've more than doubled in Fairfax, Alexandria, and Arlington. Prince William County has now invited us to come in to work with 3 of their high schools, our first high school, and we've had invitations from Charlottesville, Richmond, and other places. So we are growing, and we look forward to continuing our partnership with Immanuel. Again, thank you, thank you.
So I had 2 very amazing students, and I'm very excited because they have been actively participating and listening, and they have been really enjoying the class. Of course, it's never easy. At the beginning, you have to learn how to gain their confidence, how to get them to interact with you, how to get them comfortable with the teacher and the tutor. And once you get, you start building that relationship with them, they become more comfortable, more confident in answering, and they have fun. They feel excited to learn new things and to practice what they're already doing in school.
We're pretty energetic about it. I mean, every time we get in, it's just like, I just give them time to share what their day was like, what they did, and then we'll just like have fun. They'll always be asking me like, can we do this? Can we do that? I'm like, well, we'll do it, but let's finish our tutoring first, then we'll do something, like that kind of thing, You have to keep them engaged, right? They're little kids after all. They don't have that much of attention span, so you got to keep them entertained in various ways after. So just small talk, but we get it done though.
It's been great. My students are great. They are like family to me. I've had them for a year now. We've really bonded very well. These students, they don't want to let me go. We usually stay on after our sessions. After an hour, we usually stay on and talk about life, advice, and all of that. Like I said earlier on, we are like family.
Our final presenter is Pastor Katie, who will talk about the community initiative McLean Cares, which helped provide meals to food insecure neighbors while supporting local restaurants during the COVID pandemic. The grant was $3,850. Pastor Katie.
Hello, it's so good to be with you all today and to talk a little bit about McLean Cares. As those of you who were in worship today, whether online or in person, heard, McLean Cares, which had enough funds to continue bringing meals to our partners through November, had the opportunity to provide over $77,000 worth of meals in the local community. McLean Cares partners locally owned restaurants with nonprofits where need was outpacing supply throughout the pandemic. And as many of you all know, restaurants were hit very, very hard in the pandemic, many of which are still continuing to experience some of those difficulties of making it through the pandemic. So because McLean Cares was fundraising week by week and month by month, this grant from the endowment allowed us to get a little bit ahead of trying to fundraise the same week that we were trying to figure out where to make purchases. So this grant allowed us to have that buffer room of 334 meals that we were able to say to our nonprofit partners in advance, we can definitely provide you with meals this month. And that allowed us to begin fundraising for the next month instead of doing that fundraising for the exact month we were in at the same time. I can tell you that on the other side of this past year, we had several of our nonprofit partners talk about what a morale boost it was to receive not just food, but food that they knew was a warm meal, a restaurant cooked meal for folks who are used to picking up food at food pantries. This is a big deal. This is not only a special treat, but a lot of folks that frequent food pantries never get to eat out. Especially with the kind of quality nutritional meals that were distributed through this time frame. And we also heard from several of the local businesses who told us that their businesses survived because, in part, of this regular business from McLean Cares. And of course, restaurant workers received a $1.50 tip for every meal purchased. And each of the restaurants were able to create their menus in such a way in consultation with those wonderful folks on the planning team, at least one of whom is on this call. I see Sue Henry on this call and Leslie Reagan, who you all know from Immanuel too. And then Augusta Naday from Lewinsville Presbyterian Church and Karen from Temple Road of Shalom. So this wonderful planning team worked month by month to make sure that restaurants were also creating meals that met our nonprofit partner needs and also helped them stay afloat. So because of support like that, which we received from the endowment, we were able to create this process, which just as of Friday, received an award from Fairfax County as an innovative food support model. And so we will be able to restart again and provide meals at full capacity now from this month through August. And that would not be possible without amazing partners like the Immanuel Endowment, who said at the very early stages, yes, we are going to try something new and try to help support local business and feed our neighbors at the same time. So a million thanks. And 334 thanks for meals, especially. We are so grateful for all of your support through this really difficult pandemic time.
Thank you, Pastor Katie. Pastor Aaron, let me turn it over to you for final comments.
Sure. Well, hopefully you've all heard at least one sermon today. So I'm not going to give you a sermon. But I will say, if you are not inspired after having heard what we've heard tonight, then you might want to check your pulse and make sure that you're still breathing, because there's a lot of things to be inspired by. When I think about Immanuel and what the word Immanuel means, it means God with us. And what our role is to find out what God's doing in the world and kind of get on board with that, because God becomes embodied in the world. God is creative, and we've seen a lot of creative projects. God is relational. God crosses boundaries, and God is generous. And as you think about each of these different projects, you can see how they are about what God is doing in the world, every single one of these projects. And I'm grateful that we have the endowment, grateful for the people who conceptualized it from the beginning, the people who put their blood, sweat, and tears into helping grow it. Want to say special thanks to the Endowment Committee and to Marjorie Fox for her leadership of that committee over the years. Want to say special thanks to the Special Projects Committee, which year to year makes decisions, and that the membership of that committee changes over time, but it's 3 members of Immanuel who make decisions about how to award the grants. And as the endowment grows, there's more money to give out to support what God is doing in the world. And when we get on board with that, that's inspiring, right? So I'm very grateful to all of you for what you are doing in your various projects and the ways that you have supported the endowment. And there are always more opportunities to support the endowment. Thank you. Let us pray. Loving God, we are really grateful. We're grateful for the various projects that we've heard about tonight, the ways that they're making a difference from Arlington to Mars, from Kenya to Cuba to Burundi to McLean. We're grateful for the way they have made a difference for the differently abled, developmentally disabled, the old, the young, learners and teachers. We're grateful, oh God, for what it feels like when we can be part of what you're doing. And we ask your blessing on all of these projects and on this particular community of faith, that we might always be about embodying love creatively, relationally, generously. See us home safely, those of us who must travel, and help us to rest well, trusting in your grace and providence. In Jesus' name, amen.